Hi, I'm Romi.
And I'm Nicole.
We are two businesswomen, two colleagues, two friends who had an idea and decided to do something with it. Over the past 2 years, we've built the Daily Drip, a media platform and community for the modern South Florida businesswoman.
From Palm Beach to South Beach, we've built an audience of thousands of local business owners, CEOs, founders, executives, and more. And we did it 100% organically.
Whether it's through our blog, weekly newsletter, social media, events, or even this podcast, our mission is to offer a daily drop of inspiration as you pursue your dreams.
People ask us all the time how we did it and why we did it. Join us as we bring you along our journey and the journeys of so many other incredible local businesswomen here on Her Pursuit. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Her Pursuit. My name's Nicole, co-founder of The Daily Drip. I'm here with my partner in crime, Romi Wallach. And we are joined today by a few of our esteemed Daily Drip thought leaders. We've got Michelle Caba with us, we've got Klein with us, and we've got thought leader and community partner Robin Dimond with us. And a really rockin' episode lined up for you guys because we know and have had so many conversations with many of you who have shared with us that you have this dream, you want to go off on your own, you want to start your business, but let's be real, taking that leap is scary. There's a lot to consider, especially when you have a family and you have children to think about and you have a partner, a spouse, you have bills. And so it can almost be, when you go down that rabbit hole, kind of like a toxic mind game of talking yourself out of it and wondering if, this is a responsible thing that you're even considering, and where to get started and how to get started. So we wanted to dedicate an episode to sharing some of our journeys on the moves we made. What happened in the year or 2 years before we took the leap? How did we prepare? What were some of the things that we considered, thought about? And what were some of the chess moves to make sure that our leap would be landing gracefully, right? There's no soft landings. Spoiler alert. No, but I'm going to just kick off the conversation. We'll go around the room. We'll start with you, Michelle, because you have a really interesting story. You've actually started multiple businesses, each with a different start and a different process. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your journey was like?
So my journey started in 2016 when I lost my father. So at that moment, I had realized that I never wanted to be in a position where I had to ask for permission to take care of my family. And also at that time, because I had taken so much time off to take care of my father in another country and run his businesses, a farm business and also a hotel business, I started to see a shift at work, with my boss and with my fellow colleagues. And I thought to myself, this isn't it. This isn't my end game. So lucky for me, I had started investing in real estate when I got divorced. So that was always my nest egg. I never wanted to depend on child support, right? That was not going to be my life. So thankfully I had that. But the game changer for me and what helped me take that leap of faith was that I ended up suing my company for gender discrimination and for racial discrimination. And they settled, and they settled big. Wow. So that was my seed money. The salon business that I ended up buying was a salon that was actually just fell on my lap. My nail salon, my nail tech had said to me, Michelle, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I always thought about owning a salon. And I used to drive from Edgewater, New Jersey to my job in Jersey City and past Hoboken and always see the same salon that was in construction for 2 years. It was under construction. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. I wonder what it's going to be. And when I saw it was a salon, I was like, oh, that's my dream. And then it opened, but nothing was happening. And my nail salon tech was like, Michelle, she needs to sell. It's not doing well. And it was a reality star that spent $100,000 on this small little space, and she needed to get rid of it. And so my seed money, my lawsuit money, helped me buy that place.
Wow. And then now, though, clearly you're no longer in Jersey. You're down here in Florida. And you've since started Style My Business. You've started Fama Agency. So what prompted all that?
So the salon did really well, but I realized it wasn't the life I wanted. I had left Wall Street because I didn't want to be stuck in a location for 12, 14 days. In addition to that, having been from Wall Street, I can see trends. And I knew from like month 6 that the space wasn't going to allow me to get the revenue that I wanted. And that in order for me to have that revenue, I would have to give a service. And Michelle doesn't do nails or hair. And we're not going back to school for that. Right. What Michelle does well is build businesses. Right. So I looked within, and I had a resident makeup artist that I knew it was her dream to have the space. I mean, she loved being there more than I did. And I offered it to her, and I sold it to her, and she still has it to this day.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And then that's how you knew you wanted to build businesses.
So I sold it in January of 2020. And what happened in March? So Fama Agency didn't start because it was my idea. Fama Agency started because my fellow friends that had businesses and my neighboring friends from Hoboken asked me to help them because I was the salon that went completely digital. I was the salon that everybody was like, how did she become successful from month 1? So I helped them with their strategic partnerships. I helped them with their digital marketing. I did business coaching, consulting. And I was doing it all before even the name Fama came up.
Right. Isn't that so funny? That's very similar to my story with when I left corporate and I went in my family's pest control company. And I was pretty much business development. I was sales. I was, really representing us in the community and really trying to be the one who owned and was responsible for the sales growth. And we grew really fast. Within 3 years, we went from 8 people to 28 people. We went from residential to commercial and residential. And I remember being at B&I groups. We were part of local chambers, B&Is, and the other members would come up to me and say, can I take you to lunch? Can my wife and I take you to lunch? Can you tell us how are you guys getting all these trucks? How are you getting all these accounts? What are you guys doing over there? Would you help us? And I was like, oh, this is a thing. It's kind of wild. I think a lot of people fall into that strategic consultant role by accident in that way, just because you kind of get known for knowing a thing or two or doing something about it. And then people are kind of asking you for the help. And then you say, oh, can I make this my job?
Well, I want to point out, and I think it's interesting and relevant, is that you both left corporate jobs. And I think that, I only spent 1.5 years in it, and it was more than I could handle. Got out. I still had a shred of my soul. But I say that to say that I think that the skill set and the things that you learned, I would argue, really helped you when you talk about tools in your toolbox to be able to run these small businesses and help set them up using what you had learned. There's a lot of organization and skills and things you learn that are not known to somebody who has never worked like that and just starts a business.
It's so true.
I think that's, and you both come from that, and you come from that. Well, everybody here has worked corporate.
In my case, I was running a hotel business in the Dominican Republic, so it had given me an eye-opening to the service industry and how different that industry is in terms of how you run it, with employees and, inventory and the marketing, right? You have to heavy market that business because it's a volume business, right? And so managing all those businesses helped me with the salon. But I was also very clear about what I didn't know. And so I was lucky to, have my nail tech, Margaret. I want to shout her out because she's amazing. Margaret had been my nail tech since I was 17. We were the same age, but she started her business because her family helped her. She has 5 salons. Wow. And she was kind enough to explain to me the business soup to nuts, and also open the doors for me, introduce me to her suppliers. Because if you know, to know the nail industry is that it's cornered by the Korean and Vietnamese market. And so not often do they open their doors to people that are not from their community. Right. And so because she gave the stamp of approval, like they helped me out a lot as well. But my least favorite part about business building is managing people.
Silence.
In the hotel business, because it was in the Dominican Republic, it was much easier. Like, there was loyalty. The people that worked for the hotel had been with us for like 20, 30 years. With the salon business, there's no loyalty.
And I think that's also just even a cultural thing. I think like in the US, like the job market and it's just never been easier. Ironically, the subject of this podcast episode, it's never been easier to go off on your own and sell what you know. Right. Sell your expertise, sell your knowledge, because as we transition more into this gig worker economy, for all of you thinking about going off on your own and starting your own consulting firms or selling your expertise, there's going to be more and more of us. It's just never been easier to do it. And more of the services now are going to be designed to alleviating small business from having to employ and all the burden of employment, not just from a management and team development perspective, but just from the cost, the HR, the payroll taxes, just all there is an enormous cost that comes with employment. And the higher the expertise, the bigger the cost, the higher the turnover.
What I also learned is that you can't come from corporate and try to put in the same type of procedures and thought process into, a salon business, right? So that was another learning curve for me of like, yes, I can incentivize these ladies. I can teach them how to upsell, but at the end of the day, they have to they're making a living, like they're surviving, right? They're not they're surviving. Right. So I had to make the environment as welcoming as possible, but also plan for when somebody didn't want to show up the next day.
Correct. Yep. Right. Yeah, it was the same thing in the pest control business. The same thing in like blue collar working environment versus white collar. Very different.
Ed Milet just did a really interesting podcast that really talked about how the future is selling your expertise. Like that is where entrepreneurs are headed, is like that's the business, is that people are buying, and it has the lowest overhead. It has the lowest cost associated with, where you can literally just use what you know and teach, creating digital products, whatever it is, and saying that within the next, and I don't remember the time frame, more than 50% of people will be entrepreneurs, which I think is really fascinating. So it'll be interesting to see, I mean, even who listens to this, how many of those people start to make that leap.
Well, and just whoever's listening to this, like, we hear you, we see you, we're having these conversations with you, and a lot of you are wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I thinking clearly? Is this too risky? But the funny thing is that everyone's thinking this right now. This is what makes employment very hard right now, because a corporation, a big company, is not competing with another corporation or big company. They're competing with the freedom of being your own boss. And I don't know how they're going to compete. That's hard, right? And it's not for everyone, entrepreneurship. Like, it definitely comes with its fair share of challenges. But I think the trend is moving in that direction for a reason.
Before anyone makes the leap, they have to really think about what their transferable skills are. Yeah. And also think about the type of business you want to start. Because as I mentioned before, like, I jumped into the salon business, but realized 6 months in that I didn't want to be in a salon, right? Whereas consulting has been the best thing for me, because I'm able to be a full-time mom. I'm able to give myself the freedom that I was envisioning when I sat on the trading floor.
And you bring up a good point. That's actually a really good point, because a lot of people that I've been having these conversations with are toying between selling their expertise and shopping franchises. Like, they're looking for some sort of safety way out. And in most of the franchises, they are service-based businesses, restaurants, salons, car washes, dry cleaners. There's this whole movement happening where a lot of professional corporate people are jumping into buying these sure things, right? These service-based businesses that people need. That's the thing. Sure things meaning the services that everyone, the commodities services, right? Right. So they're looking into buying the commodities, but there is a whole other side of that.
Buying brand recognition, but it's still your job to run the business.
And the people.
And then there's limitations too.
Right.
That no one tells you about, right?
So Lauren, you jumped ship with corporate. And you went the route of selling your expertise. So talk to us a little bit about what your career path looked like and then your exit.
So I am a trained attorney, so I've been practicing attorney for about 12 years now. I didn't know when I went to law school if I would practice or if I would just use that expertise to start a business. I was on the finance track, but the world was a little hectic when I graduated from college. I didn't know what I would do with law school, but as I went through law school, realized I did want to practice. But I pretty quickly realized, I would say 3 to 4 years in, that working for another firm, a small firm or a big firm, ultimately would not be for me. I always knew I wanted to start a law firm and probably other businesses as well. And I started kind of doing that. What do I want my life to look like and how do I envision my lifestyle, especially, as I grew in my career. And I looked around at all the people I was working with and I'm like, no one seems very happy. No one seems like they have any time to enjoy this money that they're making. If they take vacations, they're working the entire time. And not to say that I'm not doing that right now, even in my own business.
I've never worked harder.
A little naivete there, but I knew that route, I would not be happy. I knew I would just slowly shrivel up and die if I stayed in it. And I was also experiencing, some gender discrimination and issues when I became a parent that I hadn't really, as a mom, before. I hadn't really experienced that before. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking at all these things. And I'm like, okay, how do I want my life to actually go? So last year, after practicing for about 11 years or so, I decided to start my own firm. But I didn't just, wake up one day and say, okay, today's the day. I put a lot of foundation in. So I spent probably 2 years, at least 2 years, really understanding my money, what am I investing? What do I have? What is my debt? Getting really, really intimate with my money and understanding how it all worked rather than just blindly paying things off and not knowing what I was saving and investing.
Did you work with someone for that? Did you have a financial advisor or someone that you could?
No, I just started reading tons of books on personal finance. And I'm so glad I started there because it's really not that complicated, especially in the beginning. It really isn't. It's pay yourself first, know where your money is, things like that, where you don't really need an advisor. If you personally, you won't do it unless you have an advisor, I would recommend that. But I just started reading books.
Is there one you would recommend?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, the Millionaire Next Door series is really good because it shows you don't have to be in a high earning profession to be a millionaire. And in fact, many people who are in high earning professions are just high spenders and have no wealth,
No liquid cash.
No liquid cash. And so that's a great book series. Your Money or Your Life. I forget the author, Vicky something. I can send a list and we can put it in the show notes because I just would read so many every single day. I would listen to podcasts about it. I started listening to podcasts on real estate investing, and I started investing as well because I'm a trust and estates attorney. I was working with billionaires and multi-millionaires, and I noticed everyone had real estate, everyone owned a business, and everyone had significant investments. No one was an employee, not one. They were an employee maybe of their own company or their family's company, but not one, except for maybe a handful, was an actual employee of another company. Right. And so I started putting all these pieces together. I also got a therapist. It was right around the time when I wanted to have children. And I was like, I got to heal some stuff before I start having kids. And I want to eventually take this leap. And so I wanted to work on both of those things with my therapist, who I'm still with today.
I think that's the smartest thing ever. Where the heck were you to tell me that? I'm sorry to interrupt her thing, but
where were you?
I'm so sorry. That should be part of it. No one has ever in business said, get a therapist because you need someone to vent to.
No, and not only that, but when you're leaving corporate, like I didn't realize the layers and layers and layers of trauma that I was carrying.
Yeah, you don't even know.
That I didn't know. Like there were times in my salon that like I would have turnover and I would have this anxiety and I didn't know how to handle it, right? And then when I left corporate, I thought there were certain things I would never have to deal with again. But when it would reappear, it would trigger me. So I had to get a therapist. Yeah, that's great.
And it was great because I literally spent 2 years working on like one phrase that was going through my head. Who the heck are you to start a law firm? Who the heck are you to start a law firm? Like it was just over and over. And I literally had to journal week after week, month after month, year after year of like working through all of that. And also just having someone to talk to, my therapist, I didn't realize like we could talk about this amongst ourselves. I wasn't in the daily drip yet. I didn't have friends who were talking about these things. Most of my friends were just complaining, which is fine to vent. But I didn't have anyone to be like, okay, how does this actually work? What do I do? What are the tools? What things do I need to prepare myself to take this leap? I didn't have that. So to have the therapist in the safe space and to kind of tell her, here's what's going on in my corporate job. And she's like, what? That happened to you? That's not okay. And I'm like, oh, it's not? I didn't know that I could even like think that it was not okay, especially once I became a parent. Then I started realizing all the things that had happened prior. I'm like, ooh, there were some really icky things that had happened to me that I just kind of was like, I'm not going to think about it.
And I think it's really important that what you're talking about, because it's not separate. Your work, your business, your personal, it's just not separate. Like we're not, robots. You don't turn it on and off. So whatever's going on in your work life, you're carrying home. Whatever's going on at home, you're carrying back. So addressing one part and not both is really, it's like an exercise in futility. Like you're really not going to get any motion forward. You're just going to stay stuck in one side or the other.
I agree.
I'm a big fan of therapy. Mine, him and I are besties. Should come as no surprise.
I love that you said that, but I love what you chose to focus on in therapy. I think focusing on the who the heck am I to start a business? Who the heck am I to start a media platform? Like who the heck are any of us?
Who am I to start a media platform?
Who the heck are any of us? And then just, your motivators and your triggers, like really having this keen self-awareness to so that you can prepare when it happens. It's not like you go to therapy because then it's never going to happen. It's so that you can manage it effectively when it does, because it absolutely has been for me, and I'm sure you guys can all say this, but an emotional roller coaster. Like no 2 days are the same, no 2 weeks are the same, no 2 years are the same. And the highs are really high and the lows are really scary because it's all on you. And when you have team, they're all looking at you. Everybody
you're responsible
at the end of the
for other
day,
people now.
Yeah, everybody at the end of the day is looking at you when you do have that team. And for me, when I was in my family business, it was traditional employment structure. We had a team of 8 technicians. We grew that to a team of 28 technicians. We had 5 office staff and then my parents and myself. So it was a pretty sizable team. When I look at where I'm at with the Daily Drip, I have a lot of vendor partners. I have a lot of subcontractors. I have straight employment team. I have a partner. I have these more complex, more diverse employment relationships now. And, just like anything, like a marriage, it's like, when the times get tough, when the going gets tough, it's like, how do you manage your emotions through that in a way that not only supports you, but supports everyone else who's struggling with their emotions and everybody's feeling it. And you kind of have to be that glue that holds on to the vision, whatever that is, that whatever that reason was that you got started, even if it's just because I want to live my life a certain way, or if it's I want to conquer the world, and if you fall somewhere in the middle, it's whatever that vision is. You've got to be so level-headed to hold on to it, even when the world around you is on fire.
You're going. Yeah. I think for me, that's what helps. When the days are hard, you have to see it. You have to have that vision. Everyone around you needs to know that vision, and you have to be working to that goal every day.
A really interesting analogy, and it was from a race car driver, and he was asked, like, what is the scariest part of what you do? And it was driving through the smoke when you see the crash ahead of you and you can't see, and you know that you just have to keep driving straight through. And I think that being an entrepreneur feels like that a lot of the time. Like, there's a lot going on, but you keep your eye on the prize. Like, you stay focused so that you can get through the smoke.
There were a lot of skills in corporate I didn't learn. Like, I think finance does a better job because my partner is an attorney, but she was in banking for years. So she has a lot of processes and procedures that she implemented. And I'm like, I never had that. I've worked for multiple law firms. There was never one process or procedure. Every new client we had the things in here, you know, the expertise, but every new client, it was like, what do we do now? What email are we sending? Like literally, I kid you not. And like, that was another reason. I'm like, this is not a good business model. Like, this doesn't make sense to my, like, at that point, very limited entrepreneurial mind. Like, we had started investing in real estate. I had started the Wealthy Lawyer Squad. So I was like dabbling as an entrepreneur before I took like the full jump. But I was like, wow, I didn't really learn that much in corporate, in a law firm setting at least.
I think the one thing that we don't do in corporate is ask for help because we're afraid of looking incompetent.
That's very hard for me.
Very hard. And that's I feel like one of the top 5 skills as an entrepreneur that we need to make amends with. Because I remember my uncle, he had a franchise of steakhouses and he went through a really difficult time. And I asked him, like, what did you do during those times? And he was like, closed mouths don't get fed. He was like, speak, you know, ask for help. If you know somebody that's in the business, don't be afraid to ask them like what they're doing.
Right.
A lot of how the Daily Drip was built was a lot of looking for resources. Like, we were building practices, businesses, and there was a lack of resources and people to lean on for the things we didn't know. You know,
it's really hard for me to ask for help. And when I joined the Daily Drip and Romi made like all these wonderful introductions, like no one had ever done that for me ever in my entire career. So I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Like, do I just send her money? Like what, like literally, like I like my internal struggle didn't know what to do in that moment. I'd never had anyone do that for me in my whole career.
That is the cutest thing ever.
Like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I'm just gonna hug her and just like try to make cool introductions back. Like, I don't know.
You're so funny, and that's really all it is. It's an infinite game. As someone who we have worked with, I'm going to shout out Matt Saverick on the episode, but you know, he has worked with us and helped us navigate some unclear strategy in our business, and he always would say it's an infinite game, you know, like it never ends, it's always evolving, and the gives come back and then you give again, and it just round and round we go. And but okay, Robin, you have a totally different story now, so you've got to share, because you actually were in corporate, grew a whole department from the ground up, only to turn around and buy it from them.
it's like it's funny because they talk about it as intrapreneurship, where you kind of have ownership within an organization, and then you took it a whole other step and made it a business.
Like, back up the train, because I did have the opportunity, and so that's great. I had already run restaurants, and I don't think people even know that still exist. And so, like, for people to be like, okay, so she's already been an entrepreneur. I also ran a construction company. So, like, there's that. I was doing the house flipping, but construction was, like, what I loved. I loved food and flipping homes. And so, to me, I had those 2 separate businesses. And I think there's people who don't know it unless they know, like, they, like, go back on my Facebook and they're like, I'm sorry, did you have a 12-year reminder that you had a construction shirt on? It has your last name. And I'm like, yeah, I flipped homes for a really long time. I had a ton of Section 8 homes, too. And so people don't know that side. And if you do follow me on Instagram, you'll see where I put, like, change out my faucet or my electric. Like everybody's like, wait, how do you have these plumbing skills? And I'm like, oh, wait, you guys didn't know? So I had already been in the entrepreneur world. I had known how hard it was, especially in the restaurant industry, in service, food cost. You're talking about just influx of, you know, we lived in a highly college age area, and so just employees would come and go, and then summer it was like you're constantly on the hamster wheel. And so when I got off that hamster wheel, I went back to corporate, and I was doing the hustle in New York. And I was like, okay, this is safe. What do you mean I don't have to like fire people? I don't have to hire people. I don't have to worry about their 401ks. I don't have to worry about, someone sticking their hand in a Hobart mixer, like, and the insurance that I didn't know that was going to happen when he ripped off his fingers. And that's so graphic, but like, that's not something that like you go to business school and they're like, hey, so when someone rips their hand off, you're like, okay, yeah, here's what you do next. Get a lawyer. There's insurance and all of these things were happening. We had gotten broken into. Like, there was so many things that I didn't know about. And I was like, so I went to corporate. Then I was able to be placed down here. And so I met my old CEO and we built something from, he did, and I was part of it, but they brought on what they called the island, which was marketing. And they brought the island, and it was a tech company, and was able to grow that over 5 years. And I told everyone, this is my forever home. I'm going nowhere. So when the opportunity came to buy it and switch it over to me, that's when I had to like have a come to Jesus moment with myself and be like, okay, you're about to step back into it. You know all the things. Unfortunately, I didn't know all the things, even though I had done it once before. Getting something from the ground up, or you said, okay, I have to make sure I get paid. I had to all of a sudden leverage money that I didn't know I needed. And I think that's something that for some people who are going into it, you can lose your shirt. When you're cutting payroll and it's tens of thousands of dollars every 2 weeks, and you have insurance, you have Florida Blue on there, you have people's, dental vision, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're running systems and tech and computers that you're like, I remember I got a call and this girl told me her brand new Apple computer she dropped in the pool. We're 2 weeks in. Remember, these are all like my home is on the line. Like I took money out of my home to pay for this. And I was like, oh, you casually just dropped in the pool? Awesome. And talk about like you want to have a Botox face. You're like, am I making an emotion right now? Like, oh my gosh, I was bleeding money. And I remember just no one understood that. We came from another company. They thought, oh, well, they just automatically assumed the finances were there, business as usual. They didn't understand that all the costs just came to me with no funding, no private equity, no small business loan. The SBA did not come to me and say, sure. They were like, nope, you're not qualified. I'm like, I'm sorry, do you want to like review that? Or loans from the bank didn't come out. And I don't think people understood that the only thing I had to do was for the past 15 years before, all the homes that we had, able to now put that on the line and say, okay, everything I was about to work for, everything I've ever flipped, every week I didn't go with food was about to just go into this. And that, I will tell you, was not a wake-up call I was ready for.
That's a level of commitment in entrepreneurship that I think sets apart those that succeed ultimately in entrepreneurship and the ones that can't sustain it. And I say that as someone that's like literally living now in parallel with my husband, who at the same time decided we'll do the same thing. We'll just, we'll both just start businesses within, 2 years and still put our kids through college. But you need to have so much faith and conviction in what you're doing that with all that going on and feeling like the house is on fire and I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, it's like that fear and all of that you're working through is outweighed by the faith and sheer like determination that there's nothing like failure's not an option. Yeah. Meaning ultimately, like there'll be hiccups, but this is happening one way or another. And I think that sets apart entrepreneurs that last and sustain themselves over time.
I can tell you, I got $250,000 in debt, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And I remember looking at my parents and being like, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll the next week, and getting in front of people, selling my heart out, telling my team it's okay, having people be like, I'm going to take vacation. I'm like, I'm sorry, we have not even been here for 90 days. What do you mean you're going to? So it was all the things, and I think it's the stuff. And then people asking for raises, and I was like, what are you talking about? And keeping that, and then having, delayed payments. No one tells me that. No one says, oh, by the way, some of these contracts are going to be 60, 90 days out that you're going to get paid. So you're just pouring money, hoping it comes. And I will tell you, there are some businesses that it never comes, and you're chasing them. I will show up at your doorstep at this point now. And you see a whole different side of things. And I think that's the part of the business is like, at one point I said, I'm in too deep for this not to work. I will lose. I will be working at McDonald's for the rest of my life to pay off the debt. I went in to make sure everyone's salaries. No one has ever missed a paycheck. No one's insurance has never got paid in my team. I've had directors and managers buy homes because of the business, and we're only 2.5 years old. So the fact to have a team to do that and know that it's all resting on one person with no loans, that's like, okay, That's like a whole new level of commitment. And so people will be like, you seem stressed. You think? What? No, stop it. Or I saw you answer your email at 4:00 in the morning. I'm like, yeah, you know why? Because I'm sitting here thinking, if I can do the coconut shuffle of money right now, we could be okay. Or I'll have companies say, hey, I can't pay you this month. And you're like,
The coconut shuffle. Let's talk about that, because people listening want to know what that coconut shuffle is. So like for me, I'll share my own coconut shuffle was when I left my family's business and went off on my own. There were things that I did for beyond coming to the realization this was what I wanted to do. There was a problem. This was a thing. Small business owners needed help with some of these things. I have, a knack for this. I have experience for this. Okay, I'm going to go do this. So there were things that I did beyond making sure we were okay in our business and it was a smooth transition out. But some of the things I did was start to cultivate my database, either on social media and also in a spreadsheet, just having people's contact information. Any networking group that I belonged to, I made sure I had all their contact information. I was connected with them on social media. I was engaging with them months before I went on my own. Months, maybe even a year. The minute I knew that that's what I was doing, I was contacting clients, prospects, colleagues, networking people. I had them all online. I had them all their emails in a database. I was cultivating the relationships deeper. So like the people that were asking me, can I take you to lunch? I was then asking them, can I take you to lunch? How's it going? What are you struggling with now? Different things like that. So that by the time it came where I was going to make that announcement and say, I launched Spring Business Solutions, come on over, by the time I was ready to do that, I had planted so many seeds. I had warmed everything up. And I also knew I put together how I would sell what I know. How would I fulfill services in a way, knowing I wasn't going to have this big monster team that Robin had. I was just going to have me. And I was also a mom, and I also had, limited capacity. So how was I going to fulfill services, recoup my income, and, make sure I wasn't ripping my hair out in the interim, right? So I had to package myself in a way that allowed me to do that. And then I knew how many I had to secure to replace my income. I think I had to secure 3 clients at my premium package to be exactly where I was. I ended up doing that within the first month, and I quickly doubled my income within 6 months. And I was only just working the 40 hours with that extra clients, so I say that to all the people who are maybe in expertise type roles, consulting type roles, advisory type roles. When you're working for the company, you might have a whole bench of clients that you're responsible for. But when you're on your own and you're incurring 100%, you only maybe need 3. You only maybe need 5. And then if you can structure yourself in a way, you can give yourself a bit of capacity to grow. And then, of course, that was just my story, because then Daily Drip just kind of like took a chokehold on me. And that lasted maybe 2 years before I was like, wait a minute, now I got 2 businesses. How did this happen? And, then my team grew, and then my goals evolved and all that. But I say that to just share, like, that was a little bit of what I did. I too invested in real estate. So I think that's a very interesting commonality here, is every single one of us leveraged real estate in some way.
Learning about passive income and things like that. And it's like, you can't undo it once you know it.
But also, I don't want listeners to think that you need to have some type of a nugget.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And I think all of us knew that, right? But there's some people that don't.
Yeah.
Right? That when I'm working with clients that are leaving corporate America and we're going through their numbers, they usually think that their income, their salary that they made is going to help them build their business.
No.
And that is not the case.
Nope.
No, you have to have an investment, an asset of some kind to leverage. Robin, in your case, you had all those flips and you had your home. Yeah. right? The home you were living in. Some people have their home, their asset that they're living in. I had a rental property. You had rental.
I have rental properties as well.
And then Lauren, what's
2 rental properties, and then we also had, just a savings nest egg, and then, stocks and things like that. But I'll share my coconut shuffle because it's different. It's interesting how they're all different. So I went from, corporate big law firm, one of the biggest law firms, making about $500,000 a year. And I knew and I know that I will be able to far exceed that. But my story, it's still taking a lot of time.
you left a $500,000 a year job. Can we just pause for that to give you you left $500,000 a year. You walked from that.
He makes like peanuts. He has great benefits and it's a great job. And I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. But I had done enough work to know that I could far exceed that. And I would rather take a few years and take a hit to get to where I want to go. That was so worth it to me.
I just had to give you I just had to give you that moment because there are people making far less that are curious. They're not curious. They're sweating it out. They're making far less than $500,000 and they're sweating it out.
Might even be easier for them because for me, those golden handcuffs were like, ooh, do I give this up? But I knew I would never be satisfied. I would never have the life I wanted. So it was like a no-brainer. I mean, it took me years to get to that no-brainer. Right. But for us, I mean, we have a service-based business. And what I didn't realize, because I'm an eternal optimist, I thought immediately we would just get 1 million clients. I didn't realize, I have to now build a brand that I had done that before somewhat with the Wealthy Lawyer Squad, my coaching business for new lawyers and law students. I had started to build a brand, but they're different brands in some ways. So I didn't realize it's going to take time to build this up and there's going to be malpractice insurance. And I mean, our overhead's pretty low, but there's still expenses that come up, networking expenses, other things that just marketing, things like that, bar dues that, no one's paying for me anymore.
I want to bring it back to the fact that you said usually, those successful corporate people, they earn a lot, but they spend a lot. Mm-hmm. But here you were earning a lot, but really making some smart moves with that really gave you leverage.
So important to me when I got the job at the big firm and my salary increased exponentially and then increased far exponentially after that because they realized I was really good. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not going to do what I see everyone else doing and just blowing in and buying a big house and a really fancy car. I love those things. And I mean, I have a nice home, I have a nice car, but I didn't just blow it all. And I think a lot of them do because they don't know how to hold on to wealth. They just want to appear rich or they want to satisfy their stress levels by living this high life. But then what do you have? You have no options at that point in time. You can't leave. I was able to leave because I was saving more than half of every single paycheck, if not more than that, more than that significantly. Because I'm I don't need to spend all that money. I live a great life, and I never felt like I wanted for anything.
I definitely learned that I can do so much more with less because I was one of those Wall Street people that needed the Louboutins.
I do, but
all the time.
Okay, I only have one pair, and it was hard to buy.
But it was also a different, being in trading, it's all about relationships, and really it's about the Joneses, comparing yourself to the Joneses. So the Louboutins helped me get onto global trading floors, right?
Yeah.
The Fendi bags were conversation pieces.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I adopted into that world. But then when I became an entrepreneur, I realized I could do so much more with less. My lifestyle has not changed, right? I'm not buying Louboutins like I did before.
Right.
I have 20 pairs that I haven't worn in I don't know how long. But I'm doing things that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I'm spending time with my son. I'm here with you guys, right? That to me is priceless. And is if you were to offer me the $500,000 today, I still wouldn't take it. I would take the longer route.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I'm the opposite. So I wasn't making that much, which is even worse because I started paying employees more than I was making as a VP. Immediately. So that was already a humble pie that you're paying people who are doing less and you're the one doing it. I've never owned a pair of designer shoes. We did try, Romi did take me to try them on. And I can't do it because every time I'm like, I should invest that. And I do want to say, because this is where financial advisors comes really important. The first year I did not have a financial advisor. Now I need a therapist. Thank you. So that's going to be this. My first year I did not have one. And I was at a holiday party that my brother invited me to. And I was talking to who my financial advisor is now. And I will tell you, when I told Ron what I had done, he turned around and looked at me and he said, "You need to celebrate that." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" He's like, "No one goes that far in debt and bounces back in the first year. I don't know how you did it." And he's like, "I've been investing with people." And so he took me on as a client and he said, "You have to pay yourself this next year." Because I wasn't. And that's people were like, "I need a raise." And I'm like, "I don't even make money. What are you talking about?" And so he had that conversation with me and said, "Okay, no, you need to pay yourself first. You need to do these things." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Because you will never get out of it." And he started showing me how to invest. And I will tell you, my energy and how I do my business, I wish I would have met him the first year. And I'm so thankful for those people who came into my life. Matt, who introduced him, and then Ron, who came into my life. Because without them, I wouldn't be even able to sit here this year.
That's another
The
great
financial
tip.
advisor is critical because there's a lot of things that a lot of people are not aware of, especially as an entrepreneur, that are advantageous, that you cannot take advantage of, or that you cannot be smart or strategic about when you're working for somebody else. And so working with the right financial advisor that can help you understand different vehicles and ways to, you know, from tax advantage things to long-term planning to creating your own retirement plan, which, you know, people are like, well, I'm self-employed, so I don't have a 401k. There are so many alternatives. And if you get the right advisor, and especially as an entrepreneur, and we both know this, when you mix your personal with your business, having somebody who really understands how to plan all that out, I think is critical and invaluable.
It's vital. You need to have that like
Shout
board
out
of
to Chad
advisors.
Torn.
Yeah, shout out to Chad. Chad Torn.
At the salon, the very first thing I did was invite my financial advisor, my attorney, my accountant, and we sat in the salon and we ran the numbers, and I was like you, I was like, can I do this? Like, can I do this? Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm a single mother. There is no second. There is nobody. You know what I mean? Nobody's coming to save me. And I remember my accountant saying, he was like, you already are ahead. He was like, just having us all here. He was like, nobody does this. No, and I had done my numbers. I knew how many pumps in the lotion, you know, how I like how much I was going to make from every pump.
Oh my God. It's to that
level of detail. Yes.
of preparedness.
Key that you mentioned that I think is critical too is you're creating a team, right? With your accountant, with your attorney, like there's so many things that need to be put in place, and having them communicate with each other is also super beneficial. And with the right professionals, you'll see the advantages. Like we've been doing this with my husband's company, where the attorney is communicating with the CPA to make sure that the entity is structured properly and that the agreements are all aligned so that everyone knows how to take money out of the business properly. Like all of these things that we don't know, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And having them speak to each other is how you ensure like better outcomes down the line. Like don't be short-sighted on things that are going to be critically important to the long term of your business.
I agree, and I want to clarify, because I said I didn't have a financial advisor when I first started learning about this. I got an understanding of it myself first, and I figured out my money stuff that was going on first, and then I knew when I had gotten to the point where I could only take myself so far. That's when I hired a financial advisor. And the whole team concept, like your board of directors for your life concept, is, I think, so critical, not just for entrepreneurs, for everybody. And making sure, like Romi, you're saying, everyone talking to each other, because so often everyone's operating in silos and there's so many things that there's overlap. That's something that we're trying to figure out within our firm. Like, how can we build that for our clients, even if they're not billionaires? The ecosystem, because everyone needs that. The billionaires have that. They have family offices, but we all need that.
Okay, so we're rounding out the end of this episode, and I want to close us out with each of you, if you had to say one thing to someone listening right now who's been torturing themselves, wondering, should I leave? Should I take the leap? Should I do it? What's the one thing that you would tell them?
On the other side of fear, there's success.
Ooh, Michelle. Who's following you? Come on.
That's mic drop.
I sold it at the salon. Because it was true. I remember there was a night that we were so packed. Like my salon it was closed down, guys. Like there was nobody in there, right? Like I didn't buy like a list of clients, none of that. And we had a night where it was like so packed, and I went from being an open, walk-in to just appointment only. And I sat by myself and I was just like, I can't believe I was so scared. Like on the other side of fear, there's success. You just have to believe in yourself.
I would say plan, don't just jump, plan it out and align yourself with the right people who will help you along the way and will not kind of discourage you from doing it. I mean, people should be honest, but you want to be around people who are going to lift you up in those moments where you're like, why did I do this? You want people who will support you and who have gone through it before or are going through it with you.
I think mine follows her, and it is find good people. And I can't say that enough. People who are not your friends, but who will hold you accountable and are there for you at the drop of hat. And I have a board of advisors now, and I don't know what I would do without them.
That's such good advice, guys. Well, thank you all for being on this episode with us, sharing so much intimate details about your journey and how you decided to take the leap for yourself, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And I hope that all of you out there listening got a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of information and ideas and tips. And you can reach out to any of our Daily Drip thought leaders by going to thedailydrip.com/blog. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the carousel of all of our girls, and you can contact Michelle Caba, Lauren Klein, or Robin Dimond if you want to continue the conversation. Until then, we'll see you back here on the next episode of Her Pursuit.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Her Pursuit. You can catch a new episode every other Wednesday. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow so that you don't miss out on any of the good stuff.
We love bringing you free content and value to help inspire and motivate you. So if you enjoyed this episode, throw us a thumbs up, leave us a rating, a review, and send this to a friend who you think would enjoy it. Your support is so important to us, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. So thanks for listening. Talk to you in 2 weeks.